What's up, y'all? And of course, welcome to another alternative factuals video. So yes, I want to appreciate you guys. Like I said, once again, you've always been just very supportive, a lot of subscribers, a lot of viewership in general, and I just want to appreciate and thank you guys. But also, I'm just letting you know that I do sell merch. I've been posting it a lot more lately. It's just a few basic pieces of merch that I'm selling right now: hoodies, t-shirts, tank tops, leggings, you know, the basic stuff. I've also changed the price a little bit because I feel like the initial price, the default price on Teespring was a little too expensive, but that's besides the point. But yes, so today I'm going to be diving into Tyroc. And this is a fictional black character in DC Comics who was actually a member of the Legion of Superheroes in the 30th and 31st century. And he was a black, powerful man, and he actually came into existence a year before Black Lightning, making him one of DC Comics' first black costume superheroes, and in general, one of the first superheroes to come into existence within like that decade. So it's really dope, it's really amazing, and I hope you really enjoy it. And before I dive into the details of this video, please be sure to like, share, and of course subscribe. Leave your comment down below. Let me know what you're thinking, let me know what you're feeling, and without further and or possible ado, let's kind of just dive into this. Okay, so Tyroc, the fictional DC character who was, who came into existence a year before Black Lightning. He first appeared in Superboy number 26 of April 1976. So he was created by Cary Bates and Mike Grell. So his character is very interesting. He doesn't have a standalone comic, but like I mentioned in the intro, he was a part of the Legion of Superheroes. Technically, he still does exist. It's not like he was killed. The last we saw of him, I believe, was in New 52. At least that's what's recorded. So there's a chance we might still see him, maybe in the background, lingering in one of the panels or something like that, involving the Legion of Superheroes. Very big possibility, but we'll get there when we get there. So initially, when his character was created, something I want to talk about, what makes this very interesting, is that Jim Shooter, who had previously during this point in time been prevented from introducing any form of black characters into the Legion of Superheroes, was very adamant about having a character who was black, who was very much a character who was African American, who was strong and didn't speak as if he was like, this, you jive turkey kind of thing, something that they did back in the day during those characters. But not only did they prevent him from doing it, they did it themselves, but then they did it in the worst way possible. So basically, they showed his character and doing and saying things that were very much like, it's like throwing it in your face that he's black. They were trying to find a certain way to separate him as like, this is a black character and then the rest of these characters are white. This is how things were written back in the 60s and 70s, because these concepts were very hard for people who were of European descent, who were white, who were Caucasian. It was very hard for them to wrap their minds around the fact that there's a black comic book character. What? Why would that be the case? But this is a situation that did happen in DC Comics. DC Comics wasn't that progressive in retrospect when you think about it. It took them a long time for them to really catch up to what Marvel and even what Stan Lee was doing. Stan Lee was actually very progressive and did a lot of things. I think Black Panther was already introduced during this point in time. So Stan Lee was very progressive in his approach about black superheroes as well as Marvel Comics. So it's actually really interesting, and I'm not gonna get too deep into it. But the thing about Tyroc is, even though he was written a certain kind of way, it was actually exactly how people thought it was. A lot of people didn't like Tyroc. Grell's one of the people who created him, Mike Grell, did not like Tyroc. He felt like he was deliberately being made ridiculous to say certain things when it came to his powers, and even the costume that they gave him, it was between like Elvis, I believe, and basically like a street pimp. So they really had like just a terrible concept for his character, and he was based off a football player called Fred Williamson. So it was somewhat just a terrible amalgamish of different things and prejudices and all that stuff that was put into DC Comics when creating this character, which is why this character I think didn't really appeal to too many people, at least not for a long period of time. So that's what was disappointing about this. Now, the biggest thing I want to actually discuss about his character in general that a lot of people may or may not know is that Tyroc was extremely powerful when he was introduced. Actually, he was actually the first reality warper who was black that we've ever really seen in comics up until that point. So Tyroc's power was reality warping screams. So he actually could use his powers to create dimensional portals, a force field. He can transmute objects, and also he can freeze objects in place, as well as burn objects or simply destroy them on a molecular level. So that's what made this very interesting. And the limits of his power were never fully explored. They were always unknown. So basically there was no upper limit to his power that was known yet, meaning whatever the story dictated, he could have done it. And that was what made it very interesting. Now, at first, when he first appeared in the comic books in Superboy, his powers were very consistent, but then, you know, the typical thing that happens when comic books continue to go on, eventually his powers begin to mix and wane depending on who is writing the story. So eventually his reality warp screams would do minor, smaller things. Then eventually his screams would just eventually turn into just simply being a sonic scream. So basically they made him a black male version of the Black Canary, which was a major downgrade. And during this time, it wasn't so much because of the fact that they couldn't write his character to be so powerful, because remember, we still had Superman around that time, and Superman during the Silver Age of comics and, you know, the Bronze Age of comics and all that stuff, he was still very powerful in general, pre-crisis and even post-crisis. Even today, like, he's still very much powerful. So that was more related to racial things, and that's not something that a lot of people like to talk about when it comes to this character, or even black characters in general when it came to DC Comics. But I'm not going to actually scream out the sound effects, but his scream varied, and his screams varied and gave him different abilities. So one scream was "Iya," which was, I guess, pyrokinesis, and then one scream was "Arr," which was force field, and "OU" was teleportation, and then a grunt, I guess, was explosions. And some of these sounds seem very crazy. "Whoo" was retrocognition. Wind manipulation was "Rar." I'm not going through all this. I wanted y'all to hear all this, but you see how ridiculous it made his power seem. But just, I'm not going to do all the screams. But in reality, he had pyrokinesis, he was able to do force fields, he could teleport, he had the ability to summon explosions, he had telekinesis, he had transmutation, weather manipulation, plant manipulation, he can cause vertigo in any given target, wind manipulation, and retrocognition. Extremely powerful. And even though he has teleportation, he was a part of the Legion of Superheroes, meaning he still had the ring that allowed him to be able to fly. So he can still fly and he can teleport. He basically had all the means to be able to open dimensions and portals and, you know, teleport and transmute objects on a molecular level. He had low-level reality warping. It's just ridiculous. He had the full-blown power set to be one of the most powerful DC Comics character at that time, at least for the next 20 years before, you know, anything else or anybody else is really introduced. Well, minus Mxyzptlk, but, you know, that's besides the point. I'm just saying he was one of the most powerful black characters DC Comics that has ever saw, at least for the next 20 years. So now that you know a little bit about him, now that you know a little bit about his powers, he did appear for a few episodes of Legion of Superheroes. Tyroc was a small cameo, and I forgot what the name of that episode. I did watch it for the sake of this video. I think it was Timberwolf. So he did make appearances in that. So that's a thing. But currently, the last time we saw him, it was the New 52 in 2011. So he was among the Legion Lost, basically a small team of, I guess, some of the Legionnaires who were part of the, you know, obviously the Legion of Superheroes. So he was a part of that team, and then he kind of was trapped in the 21st century while pursuing, I think, a villain or a terrorist of some sort. And then after that, they basically attempted to integrate into the 21st century life, and then they ran into the Teen Titans, and eventually DC canceled the series. So we did see him in the New 52. So technically, even after the New 52, after it was rebooted in 2016, which turned into DC Rebirth, he does still exist. He's out there in that universe somewhere. We just don't know what he's been up to, how the whole reboot has affected him, how the whole Dr. Manhattan situation has affected him, how the whole Dark Knight's metal has affected him, or this new event, what was it, DC metal or heavy metal, whatever it's called. We don't know how these events have affected him and the Legionnaires who are stuck in the 21st century, since they were existent in the 21st century in the first place due to the New 52. So things like that do exist. They are out there. They're out there in the world somewhere, and we just haven't seen him. But his powers are definitely not what they were pre-crisis, and he's just unfortunately just been reduced down to having just this sonic scream and having a ridiculous outfit. But let me know what you think about this situation. I know Tyroc is not, you know, at least he was extremely powerful. He's not anymore. he definitely was nerfed for racial reasons, actually, at least during the time. So let me know what you're thinking about that. Give me your opinions about other characters or other things that you might want me to talk about. Someone did bring this up in the comment, and I wanted to talk about this because I wanted to do some research, and after doing a lot of reading and just kind of looking around and even reading the comics itself, you can tell it was just the times, unfortunately, that he suffered just being able to be as powerful as he was meant to be. And as you heard, like, he was meant to be ridiculous. He was meant to just look bad. And it's really sad. It's really sad. It just lets you know the state the world was in back then when these characters were kind of first coming around. But let me know what you think about this in the comics, and well, in the comments. I said comics, huh? But let me know what you think about this in the comments. And if you're new to the channel, please be sure to like, share, and of course subscribe. Leave your comments down below. Let me know what you're thinking. Let me know what you're feeling, and I hope to see you later on. Ooh.